A week ago Tuesday, the Western world was just about as shocked by the massive protests in the streets of Egypt as we were by the hammers coming out against the Berlin Wall in 1989. But is this a Berlin Wall falling kind of moment? Is this something that not only changes the country where it's happening, but it changes the whole region, the whole balance of world power? If it is, we will frankly only know it in hindsight. It is hard to tell what resonance this has in the rest of the world while it is still happening and before it resonates. Even though we talk about the Arab world or the Middle East or sometimes even the Muslim world as if it is a unified thing, it is not. There's no equivalent of a Soviet Union unifying these diverse countries the way that the Soviet Union did the Soviet bloc. The connection between protests in one Arab country, between one Muslim country, and protests in another is as yet untested. But the protesters themselves are making that connection. What happened in Tunisia is being named by the protesters themselves as the spark that set them off. The New York Times reporting on Egyptian protesters this weekend, quote, playing on the long-standing chants of Islamists that Islam is the solution, saying instead, Tunisia is the solution. The BBC reported on the January 25th protests in Egypt that one of the chants heard on the streets was simply Tunisia, 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 which then morphed into Egypt, Egypt, Egypt. Here's demonstrators in Algeria 2 Saturdays ago. The protester on the left is draped in the Algerian flag, the protester on the right in the Tunisian flag. Here's more from Algeria, both the Algerian and Tunisian flags in the streets. When student protesters in Yemen called on their president to leave office, NPR says they chanted, get out, Ali, join your friend Ben Ali. Ben Ali is the deposed leader from Tunisia. A Facebook page calling for protests in Sudan says, quote, our brothers in Tunisia did it and so did our brothers in Egypt. It is about time for us. These guys are making the connection explicitly. So is this a Berlin Wall moment? Is what happens in Cairo going to catalyze movements in other countries that may topple other governments or risk that? Tunisia led to Cairo. What does Cairo lead to? We do not know yet, and there's no percentage in conspiracy theorizing about it, and there's a lot of risk in conspiracy theorizing about it. Things turning bloody in Cairo, though, will not help its chances of resonating in other countries. If the view on television of the Berlin Wall coming down had looked more like the left side of your screen, these scenes from Cairo, if it had looked more like that instead of what's on the right side, instead of the jubilance we saw in Berlin, if it had looked as bloody as Tahrir Square looked last night, the Berlin Wall falling might not have been a Berlin Wall falling moment either. Here's something, though, that's getting lost. Even as everybody goes to their regional maps and tries to show the connections between the different protests in the different countries, if, as the protesters say, this all started in Tunisia, that Tunisia is the inspiration, it is worth noting that it's not like things in Tunisia are settled and all hunky-dory. It's not over in Tunisia. Protests continued after the president left there. The transitional government, only weeks old, has already been shuffled and reshuffled and reshuffled. Last week, shopkeepers armed with sticks and knives fought with protesters in the capital. News reports said it wasn't clear whether the protesters were demonstrators still unhappy with the transitional government or gangs loyal to the exiled former president, trying to keep the chaos alive. This week, a synagogue was reportedly set on fire in Tunisia. Students were evacuated amid rumors that a gang was rampaging through schools. The interior minister said a mob of thousands of people attacked his ministry, all of which led him to charge that members of the security force are engaged in a conspiracy to undermine the very new, very fragile country that is Tunisia. And even as this transitional government tries to hold on, formerly exiled leaders, including seemingly very popular Islamist leaders, are returning to the country. Tunisia may be the model in terms of toppling an unpopular dictator. It may be the model for protesters. But Tunisia is no model yet. At least it's not a completed model yet for what ultimately becomes of that revolution. It is still as yet unresolved. We don't yet know what happens once even that dictator is gone. Maybe this is the Berlin Wall falling. Maybe this is Tiananmen Square. We do not yet know, and we will not know until it's over, but it is worth being precise about the details of what we're talking about it in the meantime.